I'd like to acknowledge that this episode of the Teach New South Wales podcast was recorded on the homelands of the Darug people. I'd like to pay respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today. Welcome to the Teach New South Wales podcast, a podcast by teachers for teachers. Hi everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Teach New South Wales podcast. You're joined again by your co-hosts. My name is Siobhan and
Shannon. Hello.
Hello. Today we're really excited to have two special guests on the couch, something new for us. So we are really pleased today to speak with Richard and Tennille. Hello and welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Anytime. Richard and Tennille are both teachers, but Richard comes to us from a primary setting as an assistant principal, and Tennille is a high school science teacher. Yeah. Now, although they're across different contexts, what they both have in common is their passion for AI in education, and that's what we're going to be diving in today. Specifically, Richard and Tennille have joined us today on the couch to discuss how they use New South Wales NSWEduChat in their classroom, which is really exciting to hear about. Shannon and I are kind of newbies to this whole thing, so we'd love to hear from you today all about New South Wales NSWEduChat. But before we do that, as you would know, as avid podcast watchers, we always have to warm our guests up on the couch with a bit of an icebreaker.
Absolutely. So we love an icebreaker. All right. You ready? Take a deep breath. What are you reading, watching, or listening to at the moment? Tennille.
Okay. I've got two young kids, so I'm watching a lot of Jurassic Park.
Oh,
kind of
okay.
stuff.
Nice.
Reading lots on AI, so it's really on.
Very on brand.
We're AI curious, I like to say.
Yeah. And what was the other thing?
What are you reading, watching, or listening to?
Listening. I'm hardcore rock.
Great.
Nice.
What kind? Throw a band out so I have a
Guns N' Roses. I'm sorry.
Guns N' Roses. Yeah, nice.
Very cool.
Okay. Let's get familiar.
What about you, Richard?
Reading, I've just started Tim Winton's latest
beautiful.
book, which is I've just started. It's really, really good. I've been listening to history podcasts.
Oh, nice.
Got a good recommendation?
The rest is history.
Nice.
Okay.
Delving into 1066 and the Norman invasion of the UK. Very strange.
Keeping it light.
But I'm kind of, I know. But it's really good. And it's two English guys who are hilarious and very funny. So that and watching, holidays. I've sort of started going to YouTube, kind of just scrolling, just watching.
The
kids say, "What are you watching?" I was like, "Just rubbish."
Yeah.
Really, let's be honest. So
background noise.
All right, next one. This is my favorite icebreaker question. If you could go to dinner with any influential person, dead or alive, who would it be? And we'll go to Neil.
I know.
That's a hard one.
It's
We'll
hard
give you some thinking time.
because people think, we're going to offend somebody, And yes, you are allowed to have more than one person at dinner if you wish.
I'm going to say Rosalind Franklin.
Wow. For what reason?
I think because she was so influential as a woman and she was overlooked a lot. So just trying to see how she felt when she worked on DNA and getting that really important picture. Yeah.
Great
Fascinating.
answer. Great answer.
I probably have a couple. Showing my age, I'd love to have dinner with Kurt Cobain.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Just because, I was sort of that generation and that was pretty important to me. And just seeing what he thought and that whole idea of wow, I wonder what would happen if he didn't leave us so early. So that would be one person. And strangely enough, this is a history sort of thing, Golf Whitlam I would love to chat to, just because I think just ideas that he had and things like that. So that'd be an interesting dinner though with those two.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A few conflicting personalities potentially.
Probably.
But hey, they're paying, so it's fine. Yeah, it's on their cards. So
A few healthy debates.
They would,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
We love that. All right. Do you have a hobby or special interest going on at the moment, or one that you'd like to start?
I've really been getting into pottery. I know that's quite random, but
Throw it down on the wheel.
I bought my own wheel and I love it.
That's so good. What have you made so far?
Lots of vases.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, just trying to get the cylinder shape right first before moving on to the bowl shape.
That's an art.
Yeah.
Have you lost any rings in the clay yet?
Not yet, no.
I've heard of that happening.
Yes, I can see it
Recipe for disaster. Recipe for disaster. What about you, Richard?
Oh,
You're
look,
into?
I'm a lifelong intermediate surfer. So
Okay.
He's a humble
Lifelong intermediate.
yeah, there's a whole group of us that we're never going to get very good, but we just love it, and we've done it all our lives. But there's been some nice waves down back home, so I've been enjoying the last few days with the kids and going out and sort of thing. So that's always been my thing that
Yeah, beautiful.
I love to do.
Do the kids like it as well?
Yeah. My son in particular at the moment is really kind of going crazy. He's better than me already, so
Really shredding, as they say.
just ripping.
Ripping in.
Yeah, he's better than his dad now. I don't think I've told him that yet, but we
well,
both know.
here it is.
He'll
It's
hear
like
it.
it's like that undiscussed, like
Yeah.
okay, you're better than me. So
Well, I
love
love
it.
that. Yeah, it's great to get to know the both of you on that level, and it's nice to see your interests, our similarities, and our differences as well. So it's great. I hope you feel nice, warm, and welcome.
absolutely.
Beautiful. Just to get to know a little bit more about you, I'd love if you could just give us a really brief introduction of, who you are, your teaching background, and the subjects that you specialise in. So we can start with you, Tennille.
Okay, so I've worked in a selective setting for over 15 years now. I teach biology and chemistry. The school is, because it's a selective high school, we're teaching sort of higher band levels. So it's really fine-tuning the differences between band 4, 5 and 6 and trying to get them up the top.
Yeah. Nice.
Ensuring they're reaching their full potential.
Exactly, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I really love looking at evidence-based, look at finding the gap and bridging that gap and making sure that the students really understand.
Yeah. And why did you choose biology?
I was going to
Were you
ask.
gonna
And why science?
get out of my brain? Yeah, why science? Tell us.
My mum was a nurse, and she used to come home from work, and I would always ask her what happened last night, and what medicine did you give them? What did it do? And I just really loved the human body, and I think it all stemmed from that.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Stemmed.
Nice work there, Snail.
And what about yourself, Richard?
So primary trained. I'm actually originally from Western Australia, so started my teaching career there. Did a very typical stint in teaching in inner city London back in the day, and then returned to WA to have the kids. And then I've been in New South Wales for about 13 years now, and my current school for about 10 this year. On the far south coast of New South Wales. Beautiful place, beautiful school. And just passionate about sort of primary education. And I love the different elements. Like I get into history, but I also love science, and just being able to bring that every day to the school is like really important to me, and trying to find those sparks with those kids, which can be sort of anywhere and at any time. So it's a bit about me.
Do you have a particular stage or grade that you gravitate towards?
Oh, look, probably stage 3, year 5 and 6. I do love going to kindy and just hanging. Which is different than teaching, but just hanging and spending time with them is really, really good. But yeah, probably stage 3. I just love that sort of age. They're like really interested in things. They've got a bit of attitude. You can have great conversations with them. So that's
Coming into their own, aren't they?
That's no real.
I always say if you want to feel like a celebrity, just go down to kindergarten.
Always, yeah.
Celebrity sighting, seeing a stage 3 seat down in kindergarten.
Yeah, high fives everywhere. So good.
I love it. Cool. Well, let's dive right in, because we've brought you here for this episode because we're AI curious and we want to know a little bit more. And we happen to know a little bit about your experience with New South Wales EduChat. So, Tennille, could you tell us a little bit about what is New South Wales EduChat?
It's just a gift.
It
It really is. So it's basically an AI resource that we can use as teachers. I use it across the board with everything, like student assessment, feedback, differentiating lesson plans. It's great. And I also show it to the kids as tutors, so their own personal tutor, and help them understand how they can use it as a resource as well in their learning.
Excellent. And just to clarify, it's an AI model built specifically by the New South Wales Department of Education. Is that right?
Yes. And it's
For department teachers and
yes,
students?
and completely in line with everything. So you can even ask questions about the particular syllabus and the module you're working on. Everything's really good. Not too much depth, that unwanted knowledge that they don't need.
Yeah, okay. I suppose for me, because I haven't been too familiar with the tool itself, I guess I'd like to know what exactly does it do in general terms of like how does it benefit you and your colleagues, specifically in your day-to-day?
With myself, I use it a lot with my feedback. So working with students at such a high level with so much details, especially in biology, it takes a long time to be able to read their HSC responses and their formative tasks and give appropriate feedback to it. And so what I've been using it for is I've been giving the formative tasks, student answers it, I then plug that into the New South Wales EduChat, and then it's able to give me really good feedback based on the marking criteria I plug in there as well. Upload. And it's fantastic because then once I've got that, that's really critiquing their work based on that marking criteria. I obviously then read it through. There might be one or two things that I may have to take out or doesn't apply specifically to that student. But in the whole picture of it is basically giving the student really detailed response and feedback and helping them critique their responses. And I wouldn't have time to do that any other way. So it's really freeing my time up and helping me be the best teacher I possibly can.
Excellent, yeah. And I suppose the reason why we have the two of you coming from those different contexts, it'd be interesting to hear from you, Richard. What about you? How would you describe the day-to-day functions of New South Wales EduChat for your primary context?
So from the staff-facing point of view, I think for staff it takes a lot of the grunt work out of things and allows them to think at a higher level, and kind of like in a way it just means that the quality of the teaching actually improves because teachers are time poor and they're feeling like, you know, they've got so much to do. By allowing them to, for example, I've got this lesson plan that I did last year. I thought it was really, really great, but I just want to improve the questioning in the explicit teaching. And you can do a prompt into EduChat and ask for examples of that. You might not take all those examples, but you might grab a couple and go, yeah, that's actually what I want. So it's just those at that minute details, that sort of those little things that just help you so much in that. So teachers have used it for that. They've used it for, this is my lesson. I want to create exit slips. Can you give me some examples of the questions? And then it's a conversation. So they, New South Wales EduChat might come up with the first questions, go, I want the last two questions to be word problems, for example, and so do that. And so as a teacher, it's a bit like, I don't know, I'm no cool, my kids will tell you, but kind of imagine a head chef and all their apprentices and the other chefs are like doing all the sort of stuff and they're just quality controlling.
Nice.
And I see it like that teachers are able to spend more of their time doing that quality control, which means that ultimately their lesson plans are going to be better, the questioning they're using in class, their assessment is going to be better and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I can only imagine potentially some hesitation from teachers about, you know, the model of AI taking over that level of professional judgment. To me, it sounds like what you're saying is EduChat is a partner in learning and a partner in your teaching process. So that level of professional judgment to me sounds like it still stands. You need to have that lens, that teacher framework when you're taking what EduChat's given you and use what you're saying is suitable to your context. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely. I would sort of say you kind of imagine it as a pretty good colleague who's not always right.
Right.
It has biases. It has, you know, it makes errors. So always questioning and always checking that, but a really helpful colleague.
Oh, yeah.
Nevertheless.
Yeah. It sounds amazing.
And you've been using it for how long now?
So we were fortunate, one of the few primary schools that were in the trial program. So we're over a year now, and that's access for originally just stage 3 teachers, as well as our stage 3 students as well.
Fantastic.
Could access it.
Thinking back to your first exposure or your initial reaction to using AI in the workplace, what was that like for you?
Yeah,
coming along on that journey?
What was your first reaction?
Yeah.
So I went straight from asking EduChat this really broad question to realizing very quickly you needed to not ask it a job or replace a job, but ask little tasks to help you in things. So I started off little questions, and then it became more and more technical, my questions, and more fine-tuned. And then now I can't live without it. Like every day I use it.
Would you say it took time to develop your understanding of what a good prompt looks like?
Yes.
Was there somewhere that you went to develop those skills, or you were able to look somewhere for help with that?
When I started, it was just me sort of just coming up with more creative adjectives and more But then moving on into the trial, there was a prompt library, which is fantastic. And if you have a look at that, it directs you to different aspects of your teaching, whether it be administration, to a student assessment, even like writing articles for like school letters, homes, and things like that.
Right. Oh, wow.
And it gives you a really specific prompt that really shows the task that New South Wales EduChat will be able to answer and help you with.
So through the trial, they've obviously, taken on feedback, the team, and developed this prompt library to support the next phase of people using it. That's really great. And we'll definitely link the prompt library in our show notes as well.
Yeah, we jumped in ourselves, and I was just in awe of, the subject-specific prompts, like you were saying, the sort of thematic prompts in terms of, the administrative side and the reporting side and things like that. So I was in awe of that, and something that I wasn't really aware of before I heard about New South Wales EduChat. So top tip for our listeners, jump into the prompt library before you go hell for leather on New South Wales EduChat.
Because you don't
get a better response.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's been like our experience at school is like teachers are going, I wonder if I could use it for this, and then go, this is like amazing. But the prompt library can guide you, and like my first time looking at the prompt library, I could use it for that. Sort of even like the PDP process, there's prompts for, that idea of like what PL, this is my goal, what professional learning can I do? And you can put in a prompt which will give you examples of the type of professional learning that might help you reach that goal.
Yeah.
I would never have thought that I'd use it for the PDP process, but you sort of have that guidance.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And for you, Richard, heard through the grapevine that you've been helping a lot of your staff members build skills and confidence in using AI. Can you talk us through a little bit about how you've actually done that?
Yeah, particularly as a leader in your school as well.
Yeah, it's sort of a work in progress, and I think it's the encouragement. And I think the key thing is habit forming. So this idea of, as a teacher, we have habits for, say, the way that we source resources for a lesson, or habits in the way we create our assessment and things. And I think it's just guiding teachers into creating a habit where one of the first, if not the first thing you actually do is go, how can New South Wales EduChat help me with that?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the power comes from. And then it's a case of like the prompts are so important, and the way you do the prompt. And I think the conversation element, so just showing that as a teacher you might get the initial response from your prompt and it might not be what you want, but you don't finish there. So you actually dig deeper and ask it to actually, no, I want you to change this element, or I want you to do this. And then just having conversations with teachers, how are you using it?
Yeah.
And we've sort of started to create sort of a shared library in the school, just digitally, where teachers they're sending me, I've used it for this, I've used it for that, even including the prompts that they've actually used.
Bank,
yeah, to kind of add to the prompt library that the department have, but that's more context specific for us. So, and sharing that. And so I think it's an ongoing sort of thing, because it's like one of those things you try it and you kind of go, this is cool, but then you have other habits that you can fall back on. So it's just that reminder, I think, as we move forward.
Just with top of mind, what's the coolest thing you've seen it do in terms of that staff share and, people saying, hey, Richard, I've been using it for this, I've been using it for that. What's something that you really went, oh, my gosh, I can't believe it can do that?
It blew my mind. Like the first time you ask it to do a rubric based on like learning intention, success criteria, and then kind of adapt it and kind of change that, you kind of go and put it in a table. You sort of go, wow, that would have taken me so long to go there. And now I can just tinker with it, sort of do those sorts of things.
It's like it's giving you the foundation almost for you then to extend it.
Yeah, that's it. So that's what you're spending your time. You're not spending your time getting to like 80%. It gets you to 80%. You're spending your time in the last 20 to kind of go, okay, how can I tweak this and finesse it? Yeah.
It's incredible. And what about you, Tennille?
I really love the little attachment button.
Okay.
Because
Tell us
I've
about
been
that. I'm not familiar.
Well, it's a little paperclip button, and you can attach like PDFs and things to that. And so
when we read documents,
yes, it can.
It's
wow.
And so I've been putting in past, like say for example, I give a formative assessment of just a past HSC question to my Year 12 biology class, and say 1 or 2 students or more get a 4 or below out of 7. To really cater for them to break down the question, I've been asking New South Wales EduChat to break down the question, give me a worksheet based on that to help compare and get them to compare data and analyse it properly. It's amazing. And it spat out this amazing worksheet that was able to really get them to really build their skills in that area.
It's like backwards mapping.
Yeah.
Like here's the end goal. Like how do we support the students to get there?
Yeah, it's been great. And so then I made the students, after they did that worksheet, I marked that, and then I got them to do the HSC question again, and their depth was so much better. It's
Amazing.
really good.
And sometimes it just takes that separate mode. You know, we could tell them and we could show them in a different way. And now you've got this extra layer of support, this extra mode in showing them, here's another way to do it. So as a differentiation tool, I think that's incredible. My mind's already spinning with things I would do in my own English classroom. Let's dive in a bit deeper into how you actually use it to better prepare your lessons, engage with your students, and personalize learning experiences, because we just touched on it then, but I'd love to hear more examples. I think our listeners are probably just like, give me all the ways that you've ever used it, right?
Like walk us through the steps, I suppose.
So imagine we have a lot of, like, in our school, a lot of online shared learning resources, so lesson plans and scope and sequences, that's kind of all there. And quite often you'll review and reflect on, so a unit of work that you've actually done. So now it's a case of like, okay, let's review that lesson, and I've got the learning intention, for example, of that lesson, but I'm not too happy about the success criteria. And that in itself, going from a learning intention to how the kids actually demonstrate that they've met that learning intention, that's kind of high level thinking in a way. And so that might be my first step, where I'm actually not happy with what this success criteria is. Can you give me some examples of that? And then teachers have gone, yep, that actually works. That's what I want in this lesson. So then I'll look further into the lesson. My explicit teaching, I wasn't happy with the questioning that I've actually used in the past. So what's some examples of the questioning that I could actually use based on this learning intention, this success criteria, and this content that I'd like to do? Then it can be a case of, okay, so what's my independent work that I want some students to do? And it could be something as simple as, I want them to read this passage, but with differentiation, I need to simplify that passage. So I'll put that into New South Wales EduChat, and I'll sort of ask for a simplified version, and then it might give me what I want. I might need to be more simplified. I might have a couple of levels for that. So then I can work with that with independent work. Then what's my exit ticket? Like, how am I going to know that the kids have met the success criteria? And then I'll sort of go, well, okay, this is my lesson. Can you come up with some exit ticket ideas and things that I can actually use? So it's kind of that doing that work that would take me forever, but is really, really, really quite easy in that sense.
And what I'm sort of taking from the way you're explaining it, it's a consistent, no, not consistent, it's a dialogue, an ongoing dialogue with New South Wales EduChat, because it's not, this is a tool. It's not going to give us typically what we want the first go. We need to sort of support it to give us more, give it more information so that it can support us with giving us what we need.
And the more you use it, and the more you use the prompt libraries in particular, and their prompts, you get better at your own prompts. So the initial response can be better, but it's kind of that whole thing of like, it's not going to be perfect. You're the expert, so like use it in that sort of way where you're critically looking at that and critically going, okay, is this what I want? Is it something a little bit different? Can I tweak that? Sometimes you'll get a response and you'll go, yeah, that's pretty much there, but I'm just going to change this. So I won't do anything else with EduChat. I'll just take that away and I'll use it, but I've tweaked it a little bit. So yeah, it's incredibly powerful.
Definitely. And Tennille, having worked in a selective context myself, I know, high school students, 17, 18-year-olds, they almost try to outsmart the AI tool, or try to find some sort of cheat code. How have you found that you've actually used it in tandem or in conjunction with your students to further engage them?
I've done it a few different ways. Just for an example, like just getting them to write a report based on, like, say, for example, biotechnology and how it's helped in conservation, say white rhinos. Getting them to write a report that it won't give you the answers straight away in the student mode. And so it gives them questions or a direction on how to answer the report. And at the start, how they were prompting New South Wales EduChat as well, they were prompting it as if they just wanted the answer. But when they realised that it was a tool that's helping them to actually think about how they're learning and what they have to put into their learning, they realised how to use it as a resource and using that step by step. And since I have been teaching them actually how to prompt, and with the help of courses and things like that the New South Wales EduChat has brought out as well on prompting.
Professional learning.
For stage 4 and 5. Since they've started looking at that as well, they've been able to use it as like personal tutoring for themselves. What else have they done? We've looked at scaffolds on how to answer like the different verbs, the HSC verbs, and it gives them, as I said before, it doesn't give them the answer, but then it might give them like a scaffold of explain, but then gets them to ask them questions under each of the sections of the scaffold to help them formulate their own answer.
Okay.
And then in teacher mode, I can pull up answers of different bands and get them to have a look at if they're really reaching the depth of the question and answering those verbs.
To get them to have that self-reflection. Amazing. That's really cool.
And like Richard was saying before, it's all about habit forming, right? So for them, obviously in their real HSC exam, the tool's not going to be with them, but they'll be going through their brain and saying, okay, I have an analysed question. EduChat told me and my teacher has supported me to break that question down. And this is my first thought, and this is my second thought, and this is my final thought to make it better. So to me, that just sounds absolutely incredible.
There's an acronym in that. What would EduChat do?
Slogan unlocked. WWNEC. What would New South Wales EduChat do?
I love it. But I like how, you've sort of shown us, it's the same, I think, of my year 1 students, for example, when you're teaching them how to use the internet.
Right.
How to critically research something, for example. We can't just put in the direct question into Google and take into our search platform, whatever we're using, and take,
first answer,
the generated answer that it's given us.
Yeah.
And that takes time to learn. And I think, letting them tinker with it and then sort of helping them reflect on how they used to, prompt the tool in the beginning versus how they prompt it now. There's so much to be said for that growth with the students as well, I imagine, because I'm just thinking of how my own little learners would develop that skill. And it's a journey.
Definitely, big journey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've really like the language skills that kids need to really engage with it. Because it can be, I don't know, stage 3, there can be this type it in, get my answer, that's what I use.
Yes.
But it's actually that conversation kind of thing. And it's a sort of Socratic questioning it in the student mode. It's sort of just taking them through, questioning them. So what would you do now? What do you think this is? But that's a whole skill that the kids are
teaching
learning.
them to think critically, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't just take that information at face value. Let's actually think about it. Is that what you need to move forward or to progress?
Yeah.
Which is, a fun thing to develop with your learners.
And it can be wrong. And it's exciting when a kid says, I actually think it's not right, because it tells you that they're engaged in that critically thinking about what the response has been. So that's really good.
So, Tennille, it's been really interesting how you were talking about, getting your students engaged and prompting that higher level of thinking. Has there been a particular moment or a standout student experience for you that has really solidified for you, yes, I'm really confident with using New South Wales EduChat in my classroom because it's made a profound impact on the way students perceive my subject?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I have this student who started biology, I think just maybe a little bit of interest, but he wasn't really taking it to heart. But alongside of my teaching, I found that he was using New South Wales EduChat quite a lot help him with analogies and things to help him understand the big concepts in biology.
Great.
And he came to me just a few weeks ago and said how he really loves biology and he wants to direct his whole career around that stream. So do something either medicinal or in pharmaceuticals company or something like that. So
Does he want to be a biology teacher?
oh, I wish. Let's hit him up.
What's in the prompt library to promote him to become a biology teacher? I think that'd be great. You'll have to feed that in for him. Definitely.
I love that. And thinking about students, I suppose, Richard, I'd love to hear from you because you don't work in metropolitan Sydney. What's it been like looking at, I suppose, equity is a big part of our plan for public education. And I'd love to sort of look at, how you perceive the link between equity and what we're doing with New South Wales EduChat as a system for our students.
Yeah, like a big thing with implementing in education AI is that equity piece, where we don't want a situation where some kids have access and some kids don't have access. And so the fact that the department have the New South Wales EduChat as a statewide initiative, even in the pilot schools, though there are rural and regional schools in that sense, it's great that wherever you are in the state, both teachers and then students will have access to New South Wales EduChat. So I think it's vital that's the situation. So really important.
Fantastic. Just talking on equity, that's just sort of sparked a thought, around how New South Wales EduChat is available to all of our teachers across the state. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on it being available for all of our students? What does that look like in practice?
From a primary perspective, I'm really happy that Stage 3 students have access to it. Mm-hmm. I probably would leave it at that. Yep. I don't think I'd go any further. And the reason for that is it's a whole skill set of that creative conversation that the kids are having with EduChat. And so I think that's really doable and really helpful at a Stage 3 level. Mm-hmm. I just think it might be a bit challenging for teachers to provide those skills and teach those skills at younger year levels. So Stage 3 and above,
their comprehension skills and their reasoning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's they would need to come to a certain level, literacy wise even, to go on with using EduChat.
Yeah, for sure. You have to think about it as an adult using it.
Yeah.
And thinking about what they've given from that prompt and okay, how do I it's pretty high level thinking. And as a Stage 3 group, we've realised there's lots of learning and teaching that we have to show the kids to actually so they can really use it in a positive way and supportive way. Yeah.
Fantastic. And you're on the other end of the spectrum, I suppose.
I just love it for all things high school. The students really love it. In being one of the trial schools, the kids really loved diving into it as a personal tutor and just helping them along the way to help them have direction in different, bigger tasks, breaking those tasks down.
And have you felt supported? Has there been a team or a go-to place that you've gone when you needed advice or you had queries about New South Wales EduChat? Yeah,
the team have been great. Really, really good. Can always, they often call us to sort of say how things going and any support that we can have. And like we were saying before, the prompt library, you can tell a lot of that's based on feedback from particularly the schools that were first sort of initiated. So that's been really, really good.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And Tennille had referenced some professional learning earlier. We're more than happy to link the suite of professional learning in our show notes because I'm sure people are listening right now and thinking, I'm eager to jump on. It might be worthwhile doing a bit of a walkthrough and looking at how they can, prepare themselves to use the tool before they dive right in. But we'll be sure to link that professional learning as well.
And I'd be interested to know, what's your advice for other teachers out there listening or pre-service teachers who are about to go out on placement, for example, and they may be shown New South Wales EduChat? What would you say to them about taking up the tool and giving it a whirl? Yeah,
definitely do it. It's fantastic. You start at the start thinking, how can this help me? And by the end, you can't live without it. It's great. Yeah. In all aspects. I can't plug enough. It's amazing. Do it.
What about you, Richard? What advice would you give?
Yeah, similar. Have a go. Look at the prompt library. Look at the resources there to give yourself. Because if you've never if you've never sort of delved into generative AI, the idea of prompts, even things where be kind to it, like say thank you.
Nice.
Apparently,
Manners count every
manners count. Even in the AI world, manners count. You'll get better results. But yeah, have a look at the prompt library, the professional learning that's there, just to get your sense, and then just dive in and just see, what could I use this for? Take small steps, try it for something, see how it works. Don't just do the first prompt and go, oh, that's all it gives me. Just realize it's a conversation, and you can go back to it and say, I want to change this, or can you make it like this, and things like that. So, but dive in.
Interesting. And I think it would be ignorant for us not to acknowledge that the world is fairly new to using AI tools in their life, private, personal, professional. Can you talk to us a little bit about the layers of privacy and security that have been inbuilt into New South Wales EduChat to ensure that we're using it ethically and responsibly?
Good question.
Yeah, one of the huge benefits, like this whole generative AI all over the place, the huge benefit with New South Wales EduChat is it's a closed system. So, which is absolutely important. So we know where the information is stored.
Right.
And for me, it's particularly with kids, but also with teachers, we shouldn't sort of just go, oh, it's closed so I can, put anything out there. We can learn those skills about privacy and what we actually should be putting into a generative AI tool within that closed, safe sort of system. So I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, that's good.
That sounds excellent. And what about things that you're using EduChat for yourself in terms of that reduction of admin workload? What are some creative ideas that I could bring back to my own classroom and say, hey, I want to ask EduChat to do something for me today in the admin space? What would it be?
So timetabling.
Okay, tell us more about that.
Literacy rotations. This is my group. Create a table. Just something simple like that. Tried it for like playground timetables. Kind of working on that.
Okay.
It's one of those things. Sometimes your prompt can be so long that you go, probably could just type in names and do it quickly. But I think there's a lot of scope in that sort of in that area. Teachers at school have used it for like an EOI for a media club, just write me an EOI so I don't have to think too much about it. I'll get my base thing, tweak it as I like, and then it's out. And ideas for like newsletters within the school and things like that. So all that sort of admin type things. And the prompt library have a whole section on administration and how it might be used in those sort of areas. So
fantastic.
Yeah, time saver. Huge time saver.
We love that.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Tennille?
Little different articles from excursions and things. So after we go for field trips and that, you can smash out a beautiful little article about that ecosystem and give that back to the parents at home. And also social media posts. It even gives out hashtags and emojis.
Love.
Yeah. So
from one algorithm to another.
Yeah, it's really good.
Fantastic. Well, it's good to see that it's having an impact for teachers, to reduce some of that administrative load, because that's important as well to have that support.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does a lot, our friend New South Wales EduChat, doesn't it?
It's a
I'm
hard
a big
worker.
fan.
Hard worker.
Yeah, definitely. Like you were saying, Richard, I loved that sort of analogy about it giving 80% and you filling up the other 20 with your teacher judgment, your professional judgment to bring it to life in your context. I think it's been so incredible speaking to you from completely opposite ends, rural New South Wales, metropolitan Sydney, primary school assistant principal, high school science teacher. Like there's just such a broad variety of things that you're using it for, and it really excites me. And I hope our listeners are excited and ready to dive into using the tool.
Where can I find it?
Yeah, where can we find
We've
it?
heard about it. We've talked about what it can do, but how do I access it? Where is it?
It's on your portal. Look it up. Staff portal, New South Wales EduChat. Get into there.
I love it.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. We hope you've enjoyed listening and hearing all about New South Wales EduChat. Please share it with someone who you think may also be interested. And if you'd like to know more or you have a question for the New South Wales EduChat team, you can contact them at New South Wales EduChat at det.nsw.edu.au. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
See you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Teach New South Wales podcast, where we explore the dynamic world of education. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe to be notified when new episodes become available. You can find us on social media via our handle @Teach New South Wales. Until next time, keep learning, keep teaching and keep making a difference. This podcast is produced by the Teach New South Wales team from the New South Wales Department of Education.